Hello and welcome to the latest Capital and Kayfabe. I'm your co-host JP John Paz from the Two Man Power Trip. Of course, joining me, the journalist, the political pundit, the author, Mr. Jack Hunter. Jack, how you doing?
Good to be with you. Excited about this week.
So I feel like right off the top, we're not going to go wrestling right away, but right off the top, I got to ask you about this because I know you were talking about it. I saw it on TikTok, a video you had on Instagram. The John Bolton era is over here as he's being invaded, if you will. What's the latest on John Bolton? What's going on? I mean, I guess they're raiding him. They're raiding the house. What happened with John Bolton, and who is John Bolton to be exact?
So, John Bolton has been a foreign policy advisor involved in politics for decades. He was in the Bush administration. He will tell you to this day that Saddam really did WMDs and that the Iraq war was the right thing to do. And that was a shining example of American foreign policy, and we should repeat it in Iraq and Syria and anywhere else on this planet. He is a neoconservative, always eager for war for any reason, at any time, anywhere. That's what he is. So he worked in the first Trump administration, and people like me who heard this guy, Donald Trump, say he was going to get us out of endless wars and not do that, were scratching our heads like, why in the hell is John Bolton there? He eventually fired him. John Bolton became a prominent never-Trumper. So if you're a Democrat in 2025, your entire faith, your religion, your political outlook hinges on, I hate Donald Trump. Democrats prior to Donald Trump existing as a political entity absolutely loathed John Bolton, spoke of him like he was the devil incarnate. They did not like this guy. Once Trump fired him and he became never Trump, his criticisms of Trump were, oh, he should have bombed Iran, but didn't. This is his first term. He should have went to war with this country, but didn't. That's his criticisms. He's a neocon warmonger. Democrats began to elevate John Bolton like he hates Trump. We hate Trump. Let's forget the fact that at one time we were Obama Democrats who voted for Barack Obama because he ran against the Bush agenda. We're now fine with the Bush agenda. We're now fine with Liz Cheney and Kamala Harris. We're now fine with Dick Cheney endorsing Kamala Harris. And we're certainly fine with John Bolton. On MSNBC, he was a contributor to CNN, but he's the same old John Bolton. The reason we're talking about it, his home was raided by Trump's FBI because he supposedly had declassified information. Is that true? Is that not true? I don't know. I'm not going to speculate. I can speculate on this. A number of years ago, Donald Trump's home at Mar-a-Lago was raided by Biden's FBI because he supposedly had declassified information. And everybody in cable news on CNN and MSNBC were like, Trump's up to no good, must be something criminal. This is great. We're getting to the bottom of it. When John Bolton's home got raided here recently, those same pundits were like, this is political revenge. Why are they doing this to John Bolton? It's the biggest bunch of hypocrisy you've ever seen. And as an anti-war conservative, an anti-war libertarian whose primary concern is being anti-war, not how I feel about Donald Trump, the hypocrisy coming from Democrats, seeing them throw their arms around John Bolton, Congressperson Claire McCaskill going on CNN and saying, whatever you think of John Bolton, his ideas were sound. He's an intelligent man. He cares about his country. No, he's a neocon, warmongering piece of crap, just like Democrats said, I don't know, 8 years ago, and now they all love him. So that's a long answer to your short question, John. That's what's going on with John Bolton.
Yeah, it is interesting. They had no problem with raiding Mar-a-Lago, but now you have a problem raiding John Bolton's place of all people. Isn't that crazy?
It's pretty disgusting. Bernie Sanders said something like, I might have my differences, but this is an authoritarian government that's doing this. It's like, you didn't think that when Biden's entire agenda was to weaponize the political system against Donald Trump before the 2024 election, to throw him off state ballots, the Democratic Party actively working to throw the Republican opponent off state ballots. That's some authoritarian banana republic kind of crap that happened throughout the Biden administration. But only now is the FBI raiding John Bolton's home a new line of authoritarianism. It's so stupid. So stupid.
Didn't Biden have declassified documents in his Corvette in his garage in Delaware or something? Yeah. Didn't that happen?
Yeah, apparently these people are sloppy and lazy as hell, so they've all done it. It's not new.
Man, crazy. And Bolton, if you really kind of look at it, Rand Paul, your buddy Rand Paul, never liked him, never trusted him, was always talking out against Bolton for years. You can go back and look it up. It's crazy.
Anybody who hates neocons, and I do, I don't hate many things. I try not to. It's not a good way to be, but they've just done so much damage to this country. The Bush Cheney administration being the greatest example of that to date. Anybody who does that on my libertarian conservative side, there's nothing that can make us go, oh, John Bolton's okay now. It would be like, oh, Harvey Weinstein, he's all right now because he changed his politics or something. I mean, that's how evil and damaging these people are. On the left, you have a small group of progressives, like Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna, who's a sincere anti-war progressive, would never say John Bolton's A-OK because he's not that stupid, not that partisan. He's anti-war first. But he's in the minority in his party. You have a small group of progressives, people like Ro Khanna, I would say journalists like Glenn Greenwald and Matt Taibbi, who used to write for Rolling Stone, who are genuine progressives. If you talk to them, they like, collectivist, domestic, economics, something that I would call socialism. They would not. But being civil libertarians and being anti-war, they know that their party really went in the wrong direction under Joe Biden. And would not have nice things to say about John Bolton. Those progressives are in the minority. The majority of mainstream Democrats now are okay with somebody like John Bolton just because he's against Trump and they're against Trump, and the details don't matter as much, when really the only thing that matters is the details as far as policy.
Very interesting and intriguing seeing the hypocrisy of things, but obviously Rand Paul not being hypocritical at all. He's sticking to his guns. Didn't like him then, doesn't like him now.
Yeah, Rand's not one of these stupid people who just, where do you stand on Trump? I don't like him. I don't either. Oh, I mean, that's the gist of their politics. It's that stupid. Rand's a thoughtful person. He's in the U.S. Senate for a reason. Rand's biggest problem sometimes, Senator Paul, is that he's probably too smart for that position. So,
right.
Sometimes you need to dumb it down, I guess. But no, he's a thoughtful and principled guy, and that'll never change no matter who's president.
Yeah, that's funny. It's like, this guy might be too smart. I mean, this politician might be too good of a person for this job. He's got to be dumber and a bad person.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be a requirement for a lot of these people in Congress.
I'm going to throw you a curveball here because this is, I guess, somewhat of a conspiracy, maybe somewhat of something, I guess, maybe on a deeper level. But Trump and the boys and the guys, J.D. Vance and the guys, were not wearing ties when they were at the White House. And people online that might be part of a crazy community, they kept saying no ties, quote unquote, no ties. They have no ties, literally physically wearing no ties and quote unquote having no ties. What does that even mean? Is there a hidden message or is it a hidden agenda? What does that even mean? What are they talking about, no ties? And why were they wearing no ties?
I don't know. I haven't even heard that. It sounds like they were being casual. I wear suits often for work and professional reasons, but I will wear a tie, but I usually I don't know. It sounds like they were just being relaxed. People were making that into something.
Yeah, I feel like I was reading it right now. I was like, I can't go any deeper with this. You things pop up on Instagram, but like, you gotta, get rid of it, just swipe it or whatever, and just keep scrolling. But I was like, I gotta ask Jack about this. I don't even want to look into this. What that even means of like not wearing a tie. But I guess their meaning was they're not tied to anybody or they're not tied to the deep state. I think that's what they were getting at. No ties.
I guess. Like, I don't know what. That's reading too much into it.
Are we getting too deep? Are we thinking that Trump is maybe smarter than he is or something? With the hidden messages. They always have hidden messages.
Maybe. I've never thought Trump was dumb. That's not to say he's a genius.
Right.
I mean, he's not a stupid person. He has a brash manner about him, but that's what people like a lot. As I've said on this show, he would be my favorite professional wrestler if politics wasn't involved. Like, he's pretty entertaining.
I know. I feel like sometimes you could take a message of, the guy scratched his right cheek. He's signaling to somebody on the right. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like they take hidden messages or stuff that's just, maybe they had a long day. They're taking off the ties. They're being casual at the White House, and maybe it doesn't mean anything.
My thing with conspiracy theories, and many have come to be the COVID origin being the lab leak in Wuhan, China, was dismissed as a conspiracy theory. Later it's true. But my general rule with all that is there's stuff out front that needs criticizing or acknowledging that we should be talking about a lot more than we are without even having to imagine stuff. Like, that's right. When Dick Cheney, I know I go back to the Bush Cheney era, but I just thought those people were so evil. When he's on Meet the Press and saying it is undeniable that Saddam Hussein was in cahoots with Osama bin Laden, when that's an absolute lie. And our own military and intelligence, after he said it, said we have no evidence of that. But he's doing it because he's trying to scare the American people into fighting this war in Iraq that he and his neocon buddies have always wanted, like John Bolton. That's not a conspiracy theory. He was on Meet the Press. Go on YouTube. You can see him saying it right now. There's so much stuff like that. Why do we even have to imagine stuff? And that's fun. I get it. But like, no, it's right. The corruption is right there.
The crazy thing about the Wuhan thing was like, okay, it came out of the lab of Wuhan, like China, and like everything pointed to like, this is so obvious that this happened. They're like, no. And then they're like, all right, yeah, it did happen. It was so obvious. I was like, how is that a conspiracy theory? It's out there. It's right in front of your face. That's
part of what I'm talking about. Donald Trump, because of the intelligence he had, started calling it the Chinese virus or whatever people saw, oh, he's being racist. And it's like, no, he has the intelligence to tell him it's this U.S. funded lab in Wuhan, China. But they said he was racist. Jon Stewart was my favorite. He was on Colbert, who, is all in on whatever the goofy Democrat narrative is. Everybody get the vaccine, nobody will get COVID. Like he's into all that. But his buddy, Jon Stewart, was like, we're calling it the Chinese virus because we think it came from China, like saying the obvious thing. And Colbert was just like aghast. And then, 6 months later, the FBI is like, yeah, it's from China. And the CIA is like, yeah, it's from China. Like, obvious things. So, poke holes.
So bad. It's like sometimes it's like so obvious, hit you right over the head, but they don't want to pay attention to it or acknowledge it or whatever. Yeah. Like, hey, Trump, why are you being racist? No, it literally is from China. Like, that's exactly where the origins are.
Partisans on both sides do this. They put faith before facts, or they make faith facts. And what I mean by that is, if you're a Democrat in the middle of the pandemic, all this is when Trump was still there, which is when it started. The president is racist, and that's the most important thing to you as a Democrat. And that this thing's happening, and everything coming out of his mouth is bad. And then he relates it to China, so it must be just about racism. Forget the facts. That there was data that it came from China. That is irrelevant in that era. Their faith, their political religion, and that's what it is the president's racist, therefore this is what that must mean. And there are Republican versions of this too, but that's what it is. People do that all the time. They're doing it right now.
My favorite conspiracy theory that I thought was the most insane thing I've ever heard that turned out to be true was actually from Alex Jones, talking about I don't know if you remember this, the gay frogs. Do you remember him talking about the gay frogs? So not necessarily true, but to an extent, he was right. And I was like, what? That's crazy. Because they were actually doing something to the frogs to make them asexual, like basically kind of, de-manning them, if you will, however you want to word it. But they were doing something physiologically to them to change them to basically make him so it's like, and as soon as he hears this, he's like all excited because he's like, he was right, kind of, sort of, technically, in a weird way. He was kind of right. I was like, wow, what interesting
about gay frogs. Why would that even be an experiment? Rand Paul does this Festivus report every year, right? After the Seinfeld thing. Yeah. It's just government waste, stupid things we spend money on. But it's stuff like that, like messing with frogs. It's tons of it, to the billions.
Man, I saw something. Had to be 1960s or 70s from the CIA. They were putting like antennas and stuff into cats to spy on people and stuff. And then they were killing the cats, and the cats are dying, and they were losing the equipment, like all the stuff that they were doing. And then they ended up taking fake rocks and putting real rocks over them, and putting the intelligence information like into the rocks. I was like, why wouldn't you do that? Why would you put it into a real life animal like CIA? They're wasting money. Like, oh, let's experiment on cats. Like, how crazy is that? You just put it in an inanimate object. You don't have to destroy or kill a human, life. I was like, man, we wasted money on like the craziest things. And this is an actual CIA thing. I was like, that is just wacky. What weird stuff we waste money on. It's nuts.
Yeah, that's super crazy. Yeah, I'd never heard that.
And literally, like these Russians are out on a smoke break. They put intelligence in, like a antenna tracking or their listening device into a rock. They have no idea. They think it's a rock, and they're talking about stuff, and they're taking whatever the Russians are saying, decoding it, and then stealing the info because they're on smoke break. They're BS. So it's like, why the hell would you use animals? And like the cat would end up dying and got really sick, and you're putting radiation into his body, and you're putting an attendance. It was like the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I was like, I can't believe that was real. Like that's almost like science fiction, like nonsense. But they wasted all this money on that.
That tracks. That sounds like
So
something they waste money on. It happens all the time, and they want more money from us. So
yeah. So are Democrats now neocons and then
yes,
Republicans not? Because it kind of seems like
no. So the Republican Party, I would say it like this: during the Bush-Cheney era, which was the last major Republican era pre-Trump, the base were generally neocons. Though even by the end of Bush's term, many had a sense that the Iraq War was probably not the best idea. It had been part of their political identity for so long, like Patriot Act's awesome, torture's awesome, it's not even torture, the war's great. They defended all that. It became part of their identity, but like things had gotten so bad that led into the Tea Party movement, where you saw some more like Ron Paul types who would question the war. That Democrats in 2003 were anti-neocon, anti-war, hated Bush-Cheney, the largest street protest you'd ever seen in the world against the Iraq War, all over the world. American Democrats were a big part of that. In 2025, Democrats by default are basically neoconservative in the base and in Congress. There are a few exceptions, but like the Russiagate thing, when Barack Obama and Mitt Romney ran against each other in 2012, Mitt Romney was going on about Russia's the greatest foe of the United States. And Barack Obama, Democratic Party, said, hey, Mitt Romney, the 1980s have called. They want their foreign policy back. And Barack Obama was mocking Mitt Romney, who wanted to pick a fight with the Russians like it was still the 80s, and Rambo and Dusty and Nikita Koloff and all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying that Barack Obama was thinking of Dusty Rhodes and Nikita Koloff, but that era, he was mocking him. And most Democrats were like, look at that warmongering fool. Well, here we are in 2025, and Democrats would gladly let Ukrainians be slaughtered till the end of time because they feel like they need to be on the other side of Putin, who they equate with Trump. That's what Bill Kristol thinks. That's what John Bolton thinks. That's what anybody with the last name Cheney thinks. That's what Democrats think. They're neoconservatives. You have a little bit of difference with Gaza, Palestine, where the majority would like to see a ceasefire and don't just give Israel's government a blank check. But by and large, they're not offended by neoconservatism. They're not offended by the idea that we should be involved in interventionist wars. And that's pretty much the neocon position. There are neocons in the GOP, especially in leadership, but less so in the base. And the Democratic Party in leadership and the base, they are thoroughly neoconservative now, to answer your question, if I did.
Yeah, definitely. Interesting the way how that kind of flipped and how that is now. Very, very interesting way of looking at the political world. It's definitely flipped, or
Sure.
Definitely done a 180 for sure.
Yeah, what I have the same views now that I had 20 years ago. Anti-war conservative was a Pat Buchanan guy in the 90s when I was a kid, basically. And I would go on talk radio in 2006, 2007, and the callers would be like, "You're a liberal Democrat, Jack. Why are you on the air calling yourself a conservative?" Because I was against the Iraq War and things that Bush Cheney were doing. I have the same positions now. Now I'm a MAGA America First dude without ever changing my positions. And a lot of Democrats who were anti-war when they voted for Obama in 2008 are now Bush Cheney neocons, and they don't even realize it. The greatest revolutions occur and are effective when people don't realize what's going on. That's a little bit of what I'm talking.
Yeah, well said, for sure. Now let's get into some wrestling. Let's talk about AEW. Right now they're doing a residency at the 2300 Arena in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Obviously used to be the home of ECW. What do you think about this look, and what do you think about so far we've only seen one Dynamite, but what do you think about the show? Because I see a lot of people who are usually negative about AEW, again, talking about how they don't like the look of the production of the show when I don't know, I thought it came off pretty well. What do you think?
I love the idea when it was announced they were going to be doing a residency at the AEW Arena. And when people see this, it'll be days after. But after seeing Dynamite, the first one at the 2300 Arena, I absolutely loved it. I thought the energy was great. As somebody who not only watched ECW back in the day, but I was living in Boston and would attend live ECW shows. The only time I've ever been to the 2300 Arena was with you. So
Yep.
that was
true.
for a fan fest kind of thing with the NWO. But I absolutely love the Dynamite. I love the energy. I think it's like 915 or 920 people. It's awesome. I can't wait for Collision. They're going to honor Taz. That will have already happened by the time this airs too. I thought it was a good show booking wise. And I like the energy. I'm excited for 3 weeks of AEW programming at the 2300 Arena. And the people who would criticize it that it's too small or whatever are some of the same people who are saying, why are you running shows with 2,000 or 3,000 people in arenas that fit 10,000? So like, whatever.
The interesting part to me, well, even just actually first about the attendance. So they old school ECW style. They actually, which a lot of promotions don't do, MLW, NWA, they don't put the bleachers in. What AEW did was they put bleachers in to get more fans in. So they probably, I would say, about 1,100. I would think.
Okay, and they had bleachers back in the day in ECW,
yes,
right?
Yes. So that's what Tony was going for. He was going for more of that feel to it, for sure.
And let's give Tony Khan some preps here. People make fun of the guy all the time just because he's a figure of authority in wrestling, but that was a fan show. That was a guy that used to watch ECW and took it to heart, that production of that first Dynamite there. What you just said, whether it's the bleachers, I like the chain link fences in the back like he used to do. Yep. And just so much attention to detail. Tony himself said the last time he was there was when he was 13. His dad flew him there.
96. Yep.
Right. So, like, come on. What more could you ask for as a fan than that? I've talked often on the show about not liking WWE for a number of years because I felt disrespected as a fan that they didn't care. Like, just whatever, here's our show, give us money. But that's not Tony Khan ever. And it certainly was shown to be the fact with the, the first 2300 Arena show.
I thought production-wise it looked good. I know it only fits 1,100 people, but on TV it looks like more. I mean, it looks better on TV. It's fine. I know some people were saying, "Oh, they wish it looked grittier." Well, it's 2025. I think that gritty, quote unquote, ECW look is, because they didn't have great production value in 95, 96. You know what I mean? I think that's a part of it.
Yeah, I can give you even some more insight into that. I was for Ron Paul's 90th birthday, the barbecue I went to couple weeks ago, I was tasked with putting together old video footage to be shown at the event, which we did. It was awesome. But I back how like footage from 2008 or 2011 or 2012 looks so grainy and gritty. I'm like, isn't this digital? It's not supposed to deteriorate. Well, somebody knows a hell of a lot more about this stuff than me explained. What that was filmed for was shown on devices that weren't as high tech as what we have today. So they look grainy and gritty. It didn't look grainy in 2008, but it does in 2025 because we've come that far technologically with the devices, whether your television, tablet, phone, whatever. I hadn't thought of that. But what was Tony Khan and his team supposed to do? Make it look crappier? Come on.
Yeah. Weird.
Yeah, that's dumb. They did a great job. I've got no complaints. Nothing's perfect, but boy, they were about as close to it as you could get in my book.
Not a big Daniel Garcia guy, not really a big Moxley guy either, but the crowd was so into it at first, and it felt like, the Philly crowd of old, you know what I mean? Them like cursing and being, a little angsty and a little cranky and a little ornery and getting on guys. So it got me into it. And obviously once the crowd is into it, you have that energy, it kind of lifts the whole show up.
Absolutely. That's everything. They're the other participant besides the wrestlers. And I do like Daniel Garcia and I like John Moxley. So I really liked it. The return of Hook at his dad's stomping grounds after we've been waiting on him and teasing it was super cool. And those, you can find it on YouTube or Twitter that Tony Khan surprised after the show by saying he would commemorate him at the 2300 Arena on Collision. And I guess Hook and Taz's wife were in on it, and Taz thanked them for kayfabing him. But Taz had no idea. If you haven't seen the video yet, it's really touching. I loved it.
I saw Tony came out and gave him a big hug or whatever, and Taz was actually getting emotional, which is shocking from Taz.
He did. Well, you and I both know when we were there, they have, jerseys hanging up like they were hockey players or, basketball players of Sandman, Taz, RVD that just kind of live in the 2300 Arena. So he's already part of that. I guess Tony's doing something extra special, and you love to see it. One of the times I met Taz was, I guess it was a StarCast before Full Gear in 2019. And there wasn't really a lot of people around, but I got to talk to him for a little bit. And I used to go see ECW at the revered dog track back when people had dog tracks. It was one of the few places that would accept ECW because they'd been run out of so many places in the Boston area at the time with their shenanigans. But I was like, yeah, that's where I used to see you. Despite my Southern accent, I lived in Boston for a time in the 90s, and that's where I saw ECW. He's like, I think that, he called it an S-hole, has been torn down. And I was like, yeah, I think it has. But we just kind of reminisced over that. So not really nice guy.
Nice. Yeah, obviously a huge part of the lineage of ECW, and good that Tony is paying homage to ECW while also obviously looking at his guys in the future. Good main event. I liked it. Darby and Claudio. Darby always impresses. Maybe takes too many crazy bumps that will get him injured, but that's who he is. You can't really tell him to not do it, you know?
He's in that category. I would put Kenny Omega and Ospreay. The way they wrestle is absolutely insane and dangerous, but it's part of why we like them. Darby said explicitly, I know I'm, they call it their bump card wrestlers, that he's using them up quickly and doesn't expect to have a long career, but he just kind of openly says that. I don't know what to think about it. I'm not them. I like watching it, but would I like to see 47-year-old Darby still at it? Yeah. Do I think we're going to? Probably not.
Yeah, maybe not, unfortunately. But that was a good main event, good show. I don't know if I miss all the way at the end. Darby ran out of the building. Was there something after that? I don't know if I missed that or not. Did anything else happen?
I'm trying to remember. Probably, and I'm blanking.
Because I know he went off and Gabe Kidd went to chase him, but I don't remember if there was something after that or not. Oddly.
Yeah, I want to say there was, and now I can't remember. I watched it later than it airs because I went to go see a local showing of Rock and Roll Ramones movie, so I didn't get home till like 10:30. So I might be a little fuzzy on my memory.
But they're definitely continuing on something with Darby and Gabe Kidd, and then obviously Darby and Moxley is where we're headed.
Yeah, and I like, somebody who grew up on Jim Crockett Promotions. Look, every company has the heels and the baby faces, but like if Dusty was getting beat up on an NWA show, the Rock and Roll Express and Jimmy Boogie Woogie Man and Magnum TA were running out to help him. The baby faces were going to run out to help him. We're seeing that in AEW where, Darby's a major face. Ospreay, who's going to be on the shelf for a little bit. Swerve is going to be on the shelf for a little bit. These are the major faces. When they're getting attacked by the heels, the other baby faces run out and help them. Now, I'm not saying that's unheard of, but it was definitely a Crockett thing. Maybe it was a Bill Watts thing too. I don't know. But AEW is doing that. Tony Khan's the kind of person who knows that history and does that. I absolutely love it. I think it's cool.
Kenny Omega is back. Adam Page and him teasing something there. So they got something cooking right now.
They do. I think Hangman's the perfect champ for them right now. I think this run is already better than his first world title run. The biggest Ric Flair fan in the world I am, and Ric Flair's second world title run just meant so much more than his first one, and the first person that Ric Flair. Hopefully that's what's happening with Hangman Adam Page, because I just think he's the perfect champ and face right now. Needs to hold on to that belt a little bit.
For Forbidden Door, technically speaking, Adam Page versus MJF for the title was not the main event. They did the lights out steel cage match. I know when you do that, the lights out, it's unsanctioned. So technically the show ends and then they give you an extra match, technically, if you will. Do you like the fact that Page and MJF was not the technical main event of the pay-per-view?
I understood why they did it because of the spectacle of a cage match with that many people in it. What was the better and more memorable match? It was Hangman MJF. It just was. Yeah, I don't know that I would have done it different booking wise, but when it was all said and done, I think that the world title match is more memorable. Maybe you disagree.
I don't. Maybe they felt like it couldn't follow something that had all those, like Darby going through 3 tables and getting his ear ripped off, and maybe they felt like it necessarily you don't want it to follow that, and this match is going to be absolutely crazy. To me, I'm more of like, hey, I'll go for the world title match between like 2 of the best guys kind of thing over a crazy match.
Same, and I don't know if I'm old fashioned or it's weird, but like when they're like, we got a 10-man tag with no rules, and I'm like, I want to see one guy fight one guy with the same old wrestling rules I grew up on. See that than all this other stuff. I'm not saying it can't be good because it often is, but I'm not like, hot damn, I'm there. There are 14 people in this match. That I have the opposite reaction when I see that or hear that, or that there's no DQ. Like Jim Cornette says, lazy booking. I think he's right.
To me, it's kind of more for like the live crowd. Like when I'm there and there's like the live crowd and they have those crazy matches. Yes, it's good because you really get into it. But at home, it's like, man, I want like the one-on-one world title match, and like I want something to happen at the end where it leads implications of like, maybe a new champ or something happens, and like I'm more for that than just, hey, let's just do crazy spots.
And when you're watching a match with 12 people in it, I usually watch wrestling with my girlfriend, who's also a big fan, but all the time we're like, who's the legal man? Who's the legal man? Who's the legal man?
Right.
Lev doesn't seem to know. There's 10 people in there right now. What's going on? What am I watching? Who's winning? Like, who cares? So.
Yep. And then they did the Osprey injury angle. So obviously he's going to have neck surgery. He's out for a while, which sucks because I thought he might be, instead of Page, I thought they might go in the direction of him winning the title and him getting a run. Obviously, that's not to be because he's going to be out for a while.
If he's healthy, and he will be again, Ospreay is going to be AEW champion at some point. Do you do that at Wembley in 2027, maybe?
Yeah.
Just saying, in his home country, like he still won't be an old man then. He still will Ospreay, one of the top guys in the business. Well, and take some time off. Did he just have a kid? Or no, he's a stepfather to Alex Windsor's child from a previous relationship. But yeah, just enjoy some of that time and come back, and we'll be ready for it. It'll be exciting. It'll be a boost to AEW at the time.
This is crazy. I didn't hear anybody mention this or talk about this, and it means nothing. It has no justification on the pay-per-view, but I just found it very interesting. So I was like, wow, they used a lot of guys on the show, counting referees, announcers, wrestlers, managers, talent, like everybody. I was curious. So I counted 100 talents they used for the show. Wow. Means nothing to whatever. I just thought that was crazy. It's like, wow, Tony's paying 100 guys for one show. I was like, wow, that is a lot. Like, and Wardlow was a surprise, so I counted him in there. Jamie Hayter, I counted because she was surprised. But they used 100 people. I was like, holy crap, that's a lot of talent for one show.
That is a lot. I didn't realize it was that many. It didn't register. That has to be for the pre-show as well and all that.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And like Walker Stewart, who's a New Japan announcer, like I counted everybody, but I was just surprised because I was reading. I was like, wait, that many people were on the pre-show? It was like a 4-on-4 and then a 4-on-4 women's match. And then Jamie Hayter came back. It was like they used a ton of talent on that show. I was just shocked by it.
Yeah. I'm shocked to hear you say that number. Like it didn't register with me that it was that many people. That's unheard of.
So that show, right, Forbidden Door, it seemed like it was like one of those pay-per-views that was getting a lot of buzz, a lot of people talking on social media, a lot of people were loving, AEW that day. Obviously, it was in England, so it was on an earlier time. It was on at 1 p.m. But I felt like it still took over the entire day because people were saying, oh, that's right, NXT Heatwave is on. NXT. There was no buzz at all. So counter programming works sometimes. I feel like sometimes it does not work at all. Here, and correct me if I'm wrong, the NXT quote-unquote counter programming, even though it was later on the night, I feel like it was counter social media programming where you're trying to get the attention away from the other promotion. I don't think it worked at all. I think it worked against them. What do you think?
I don't think so at all. And as somebody who watches both products and has favored one over anytime I favored one over the other doesn't mean I'm against the other one. Just one is my favorite depending on what they're doing. Right now, I'm a little more AEW than WWE. Year ago, it might have been the opposite. It actually was. I don't think the counter programming worked in this particular instance at all. I remember specifically because I watched Forbidden Door a little later, something I had going on that day. When it was over, I'm like, oh, I want to go see Jordan Grace versus Blake Monroe, formerly Mariah May. And I zipped to that match and watched it and was satisfied. And I guess I watched Trick and Javon Evans too, but like that was an afterthought. It's any of those wrestlers who I think are phenomenal in NXT, but the whole day was Forbidden Door without question. Yeah, because that show went long. I always like to watch the scrum afterwards. That's one of my favorite parts. Even Tony Khan answering like the basic corporate speak that they do. I like all of that. Maybe there's something wrong with me, but I enjoy those.
He didn't really even say anything when they were asking him about NXT counter programming. He kind of just gave like a generic answer to that too. I was surprised that he didn't like go for the throat and be like, well, they're going to be talking about us all weekend because NXT, like they don't have anything compared to this show. But he kind of was giving a corporate generic answer.
And he should do that more often. Some of the times he's gotten involved to what fans or even the other company saying in the past. I was like, I wish he hadn't have done that because, you're AEW. You're a big deal. You got a lot of money. You can compete with McMahon's and with TKO. Act like it. Don't take the bait all the time. And there's plenty of times he doesn't, and God bless him for it. But like, yeah, I liked his answer on that. Like, whatever. Go ahead, Heat Wave.
Yeah. I know Eric Bischoff, of course, from WCW. I know he was a heel on TV, and when he would say that stuff, it kind of resonated maybe a little bit different when he would really, go after WWF sometimes and really just, mention Vince and different things like that. I'm talking more of like 96, 97, 98, more like when he was a part of the NWO. Obviously, prior to that on Nitro, he's giving away spoilers and stuff, and he's just the quote unquote announcer. It's like, that was crazy. But Bischoff, I feel like he really went for the throat sometimes, and Tony sometimes, I don't know, kind of goes in that middle gray area where he doesn't really kind of rip on them too much. And it's weird because I guess sometimes you would get backlash. Oh, why are you going after somebody bigger than you? But Bischoff did it, and kind of everyone almost like applauded him for it.
Bischoff did it way more aggressive than anything Tony Khan's ever done. When I see Bischoff, and I like Eric Bischoff. I'm a fan of him from that.
Oh yeah, me too.
90s. I'm a fan of him now. I like the guy. When I met him with you guys at the 2300 Arena, he said nice hair, and I said I learned from the best. So, but I do laugh when I see him like, why are you always poking the bear, Tony Khan, and going after the other company? I'm like, you're Eric Bischoff. You can't.
Yeah, you're like the master of that. Yeah.
Right. Like you were the guy that did that. And I do think, and this is just me guessing, maybe you have a different thought, that there's something with Eric Bischoff that he's accustomed to. I'm the guy that challenged Vince McMahon's WWE in a big way and won for a time. If there's another major company that surpasses him in doing that, maybe he doesn't like that. I think that's probably a part of him. I could be wrong, but that's how it comes to me.
Maybe a little human nature there coming out. You don't want anybody to be. But really, if you look at it, he's the only guy ever to beat Vince, ever. Period.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like if AEW, Bischoff showed up on some earlier AEW Dynamites and stuff, like they were friendly, but like, and AEW benefited when it first began from WWE not being very good at the tail end of what Vince was doing, and then kind of switched and WWE got better. But now AEW's on an upswing. The closer they can get to being as competitive as they possibly can be is best for fans. It's best for both companies, I think. But I don't know that Bischoff likes giving AEW credit. Like they got this great TV deal. Congratulations, AEW, and Tony Khan is in order.
Yeah, amazing.
You don't hear
TV deals for wrestling companies, not easy to come by these days.
Right. And that's something Dave Meltzer's really good on. And I know, like Dave and Eric Bischoff are sideways, and I disagree with Dave Meltzer a lot. And I actually agree with a lot of the wrestlers' opinions who don't like the point scoring system and whatnot. I get that. But he points out, if we're in the wrestling business, it's all about dollars and cents. This is how much money they got for a TV deal. That's the metric. That's what any booker anywhere would have used as the metric. What's the house? What did we make? That's what he made. You can't argue with it.
Yeah. I love Bischoff. He's great. But he did say the reason kind of he went sideways on Tony Khan in an interview said that he's smarter than Ted Turner ever was, which is an interesting quote. And I don't think he was saying it as like being a heel. I think he was just trying to be, I don't know, maybe try to be like smarmy or funny. I don't know what. But he goes, I'm smarter than Ted Turner. And if he had me back in that day, he would have been making more money and he'd still be on TV. Like he was basically kind of doing an old Barry Horowitz, slap on the back to himself, saying that he knew more about wrestling than Ted Turner. I was like, whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know how quite to take that. I would think he was saying, Ted Turner was in the wrestling business because what was his thing? He knew Ric Flair, and if Ric Flair was in the thing he owned, he knew he was doing all right. That's his level of knowledge about the wrestling business, right?
He's just a fan. He was just a fan. Yeah.
Right. He's just a fan. Tony Khan is a smart fan that has as much, if not more money than Ted Turner ever had. Maybe that's what he was saying. Like he was a guy that's in the know.
Yeah.
As far as really understanding the product, what fans might like and don't like. All Ted Turner ever understood was wrestling helped build my Turner broadcasting empire, and Ric Flair's in it, so he's all right.
Yeah.
Here you go, Eric Bischoff. Go do something with it. I mean, that was the level. So I think that's probably what Tony was saying, but who does?
Yeah, Bischoff did not like that. And obviously Tony doesn't like the fact that Bischoff is a WWE guy. Like he was in the Hall of Fame. He has a Legends contract. So it's like, obviously, he had him in AEW and all of a sudden he's being used in WWE a bunch. So I don't think, there's obviously tit for tat there. And it's interesting with Ted too, which is so funny. I'm in the wrestling business, as he infamously said to Vince, and Vince goes, "That's nice. I'm in the sports entertainment business."
Right. Well, let me ask you something on the subject. I genuinely want to know your opinion, and I've wondered this a lot. So Tony Khan grew up as a wrestling fan, watching WWE, old stuff from Crockett, Bill Watts, Mid-South, all that kind of stuff. But like he just watched it all. He has his own company now. He's in competition with WWE and has opinions about that and feelings about that. Does he just – I think he still watches it all is what I'm getting at. I think he still watches WrestleMania, SummerSlam, their program and what they're doing on top of what he has to do as his job. But it's a different dynamic because of the positions he's in. A hardcore fan like that just doesn't stop watching one product. Like Vince McMahon genuinely did not watch WCW or Jim Crockett. Like he didn't care until they got to him. Tony's not that. I think he's watching it all.
Yes, I agree. Definitely.
As a fan, like he's like, oh crap, WrestleMania, I want to see. He's not going to say like, man, I was really excited by the main event of WrestleMania. He can't, but I think he probably still feels that way because he's a fan. You can't get that out of you.
Oh, he's definitely checking it out. Definitely.
Yeah.
And speaking of Vince, his 80th birthday party just happened, and AC/DC and Kid Rock performed at the 80th birthday. It was a black tie affair. Believe it or not.
Of course.
With a huge sculpture of Vince's head. I don't know if you saw that online.
I didn't see that. Oh, that sounds on brand for Vince McMahon.
Yeah, I was like, wow. I hate I not that I'm like a Vince fan or a Vince hater, but it's almost like, is this guy an egomaniac or what? He's got a, but I don't know. I don't know if he was the one necessarily that built the damn or wanted the damn thing built. Could have been changed. Somebody else was like, oh, it would be awesome if we had a head of Vince, but it sounds like something Vince would want. Like a giant sculpture of my head. Yeah,
no, that sounds. I mean, him and Donald Trump are basically the same person, and I don't even mean that as an insult. That's just what they are. I mean, I can or not. Like there's pros and cons to that statement. Yep. I thought it was interesting how many wrestlers, former wrestlers, current wrestlers were there, but also like his son-in-law Triple H was not there. Stephanie, his daughter, was not there, and I understand why, but I do find it interesting.
But it's interesting with Triple H though, because I know he could have made time, could have had applied private jet, blah blah. But he was working, and they were going overseas, so I kind of gave him a pass. But Stephanie, I don't know, that's kind of telling on that one.
Yeah, and they're associated with TKO now. They have bosses. Do they have a say in something like that and what's going on and controversial aspects? I don't know.
But look at all the guys who are there: Sheamus, Drew McIntyre, John Cena,
current roster people. My friend Glenn Jacobs was reportedly there. R-Truth, which makes all the sense in the world. Yeah, very interesting. I don't think anybody's shocked that Vince McMahon would celebrate his 80th birthday in a big way, despite what's going on in the news cycle with him.
Did you see online somebody as a joke said what R-Truth would say if somebody asked him why he was at that birthday party? I don't know if you saw that. And it kind of makes perfect sense with like the comedy R-Truth character. He would be like, "Oh man, we're in a black tie." He goes, "I thought we were going to a funeral. I thought it was Vince's funeral." So I was like, "That's actually kind of funny." If somebody asked him why he was there, it's like, "Oh, I thought it was his funeral. I didn't realize it was his birthday party." Like that would be typical, like great Truth response.
Yeah, there's so many things we could say about that. I can't imagine, even with the controversy, which is serious, if Vince really did these things he's accused of, which it's due process, it's still out there. Yeah. But also, if you're these performers, you're rich and famous and set for life because this guy gave you an opportunity. I'm not them, trying not to judge, but like that is something to consider. And to have a relationship. I mean, he's a father-like figure to a lot of these guys. This is not to dismiss what he's charged with. Hitler might have been a nice guy to some people. The fact that he's Hitler you could be is Vince. I don't know. What I'm trying to say is it's complicated.
Yeah, definitely. People think they owe him, and then like they're maybe he's on the way out. Obviously, he's on the the other end here. He's 80 years old, so I could see that. And obviously, Shane McMahon's there too as his dad. He's supporting his dad. Doesn't necessarily mean that thinks he's guilty or innocent. It's just that it's his dad, and he's there. And Kane and Undertaker obviously worked for him for 30 years, so it's a lot of different for a lot of guys.
And a report you heard often after the event was Vince looked 80. He looked old. Vince worked on TV as an older gentleman for a long time, but he always kind of looked like Vince, just a little more gray and wrinkles, but he looks like an old man, is what people were saying. And he's 80 years old. Of course he would.
Of course, Bruce Pritchard was there, Gerald Briscoe, Sergeant Slaughter,
Mhm.
JBL. So, obviously the guys you kind of would expect to be there
Sure.
were there. Although I don't know if anybody's talking about it, because JBL said no one's talking about like what birthday party besides AC/DC and Kid Rock. Nobody's saying kind of anything about it.
Well, the only reason people knew about some of it was some of the pictures taken with people all together in their formal attire, right? And I think it's probably an unspoken, or maybe it was spoken explicitly thing that like, hey, we're doing this thing and we're not going to talk about it. We're not going to talk, just it is what it is. And that's probably wise.
And people obviously saw Jerry Lawler posted a picture of him, Maurice, Miz, Titus O'Neil, Sheamus, and Drew McIntyre. So then people kind of assume he didn't say it was Vince's. I don't think he said it was his birthday party. Maybe he did, but people then realized, oh, that's what they're all getting dressed up for. And
yeah, people can connect the dots when some wrestler gets married and there's people from both companies in one place wearing nice suits. You kind of figure out what's going on. This is like that.
Yeah, definitely. So it's interesting. Vince is 80. And starting a new company. I think it was called 14th and I. So interesting. He's production company, but he's still going at 80. He's not giving up.
People like him don't know how to retire. He can't just sit around and do nothing. So I guess that's what he's doing at 80 years old. That's just a personality trait.
Yeah, very true. So let's wrap this bad boy up and head towards the plugs. You follow me on Twitter and Instagram at 2BadPowerTrip. How about you, Jack?
You can find me on X, formerly Twitter, at JackHunter74, where you can find all my writing, sayings, doings, videos about wrestling and more.
All right. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, everybody out there, for listening. We'll see you right back here next week for a little Capital and Kayfabe. See you next week.